dive. Today, we're plunging into a question that, well, it's haunted philosophers for millennia, hasn't it? And frankly, it feels more relevant than ever in our hyper-connected, algorithm-driven lives. The question is, isn't all reality and any axiom of belief just a construct? We're going to try and untangle this by sifting through a truly fascinating stack of sources. We've got a dense critical theory, a chilling dystopian film, a real-world cybernetic experiment, even the latest from neuroscience. Our journey will explore how what we perceive as real, what we believe is true, maybe even our fundamental sense of self, how it might be shaped by forces we barely comprehend. And it leaves us wondering, doesn't it, if that sort of hollowness many of us feel sometimes is, well, a byproduct of living within someone else's carefully curated reality.
Indeed. Our deep dive today is hopefully a shortcut to understanding this really profound idea. We'll try to connect the threads between thinkers and events that seem quite different on the surface, and reveal how many thinkers have, for a long time, sort of portended a world where our experiences are increasingly curated. Which makes us question, how much of our world is truly real, and how much is maybe a meticulously crafted illusion. We'll ask you to consider what defines the possible for you, specifically, and how those very definitions might themselves be, well, a construct. Prepare for some truly mind-bending insights as we explore this intricate tapestry of constructed reality.
So let's unpack this together.
The philosophical foundation of constructed realities.
Okay, so to really grapple with this idea that reality itself might be a construct, we have to start with the foundations, right? The thinkers who first kind of lit up these concepts. Our journey begins with Herbert Marcuse, a towering figure in critical theory. He examined how advanced industrial society subtly creates what he called a universe of discourse and action, and how that universe effectively bars oppositional operations and behavior. What does that even mean, though, and why is it so significant?
Well, what Marcuse is getting at here is it's profoundly subtle, but incredibly powerful. He argues that in highly developed societies, the dominant way of thinking, the dominant way of acting becomes so ingrained, so all-encompassing, that any ideas or behaviors that challenge the status quo are systematically pushed to the margins. They're not just, disagreed with. They're rendered illusory or meaningless.
Illusory or meaningless.
Yeah. Think about it. If you can't even articulate an alternative because the very language of the framework for doing so has been dismissed as irrational, then that alternative effectively ceases to exist in the collective consciousness.
So it's not just about censoring actions, but censoring thought itself. Is that what he said?
Precisely. Marcuse states that historical transcendence appears as metaphysical transcendence not acceptable to science and scientific thought. Now, that's a bit dense philosophically, but it's crucial. He's saying that any idea of truly transcending, moving beyond or radically changing the current social order, it gets rebranded. It's called mere metaphysics. It's dismissed as unscientific, impractical, maybe even utopian. And that makes it unacceptable to rational discourse.
Okay.
The cunning of reason, as he termed it, it works in the interests of the powers that be. It's not about overt, tyrannical suppression. It's much more insidious. It's a form of conceptual limitation where societal structures actively shape what we even consider rational or conceivable, to the point where the existing order becomes the only sensible reality. It's not just about what is, but what is allowed to be thought about. And that becomes the view of the established universe.
That really resonates. Have you ever felt that certain ideas, maybe about fundamental shifts in economic systems or completely new ways of living and working, they just get waved away, called idealistic or impossible, almost before they're even fully formed?
Exactly.
It's not necessarily some grand conspiracy, is it? But more like this subtle conceptual limitation at play. The established way of thinking just creates its own logical prison, subtly ensuring that non-contradiction and non-transcendence is the common denominator.
That's a great way to put it. And Marcuse goes further. He suggests that thought itself can be cured from transgression beyond a conceptual framework which is either purely axiomatic or coextensive with the established universe of discourse and behavior. It's a chilling thought, really, that even philosophical analysis can be used almost therapeutically to remove metaphysical specters and meaningless notions, effectively enforcing a kind of positive thinking that aligns perfectly with the established reality. If your ideas don't fit the approved framework, they're not just wrong, they're rendered meaningless. This habit of thought becomes so deeply ingrained that we often internalize the very reasons for dismissing alternatives. We become unwitting enforcers of the limits on our own thought. It's a very sophisticated form of mind control, you could almost say, through the very structures of rationality and accepted discourse.
Okay, following this thread of shifting foundations, Bertrand Russell, a giant of 20th century philosophy, mathematics, he reflected on his own experiences living through a world that just dramatically transformed around him. He spoke of 80 years of changing beliefs and unchanging hopes. That's quite a poignant statement, isn't it? It speaks volumes about resilience amidst, well, profound instability.
It really does. Russell's life, I mean, 1872 to 1970, that was an era of unprecedented change. He vividly described how things once thought to last forever just vanished. He grew up when English naval supremacy was just taken as a given, an unshakable pillar of the global order.
Right.
He saw the widespread belief that every country was going to take to Parliament and become just like England. Bicameral legislature, two parties, that crumbled entirely. These weren't just assumptions. They were perceived as immutable truths, almost like laws of nature when he was young. And think about it. He lived through two world wars, the rise and fall of empires, the nuclear age, profound social upheavals.
An incredible amount of change.
Absolutely. And his pursuit of truth, initially rooted in the rigor of mathematics, then a search for some basis for religious belief. It led him to find, as he put it, a certain satisfaction in the Platonic eternal world of ideas, this notion of perfect, unchanging forms existing outside our physical reality. But eventually he concluded that was nonsense.
That journey from certainty to disillusionment is incredibly relatable, isn't it? It really highlights how even the most robust philosophical frameworks, the ideas we cling to as absolute, they can be exposed as constructs when reality itself evolves. Russell's relentless pursuit of foundational truth and then abandoning what he once found satisfying. It underscores that constant human grapple, right? What constitutes reality versus just belief? Think about things you believed were absolute truths in your youth, maybe about the economy, politics, success, the stability of the planet even, that have since shifted or vanished entirely. How does that make you view the solidity of reality? It's a constant recalibration, isn't it? A reminder that our understanding is always in flux.
And that distinction Russell makes between changing beliefs and unchanging hopes, that's critical. He recognized that while our belief about how the world works, or maybe should work, those are indeed constructs that can crumble. But our deeper human hopes for peace, meaning, connection, those can endure. He found it difficult as an old man living in such a changed world, but he was prepared to change his beliefs. And that offers a profound insight. While our constructed realities might shift beneath our feet, there's maybe a more fundamental human drive that persists, allowing us to adapt and grow.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Our deepest convictions about right and wrong, they often feel absolute, don't they? We talk about universal moral laws. But Carl Jung, the renowned analytical psychologist, he delves into how some of our most deeply held axioms, like good and evil, might be fundamentally human constructs, not inherent universal truths.
Jung makes a fascinating case here. He argues that opposites acquire their moral accentuation only within the sphere of human endeavor and action.
Mm.
Hmm. In simpler terms, concepts like good and evil only gain their moral weight, their definition, because of us, because of our human need to make sense of the world, to categorize, to guide our actions. And critically, he states, we do not know what good and evil are in themselves. They spring from a need of human consciousness. So this implies that our moral compass, while incredibly powerful, absolutely essential for society, it's ultimately a product of our collective psyche, our culture, our history, rather than some inherent pre-existing universal law just waiting to be discovered.
So it's not that good and evil don't exist, but that we define them. We create their meaning.
Precisely. Yeah. For instance, Jung notes how early Christianity, with unerring logic, balanced Christ against an antichrist. You create the poles, right? That's necessary for moral definition. You can't really have high without low or good without bad. This duality seems fundamental to how we humans think, how we construct meaning. And it's not just morality. Jung also points out this fascinating historical lineage. He suggests that alchemy, once a significant pursuit to understand and transform matter, it found its continuation in natural science.
Right.
Which then led to materialism and what he calls so-called realism.
That's a powerful progression. It shows how one dominant truth system can kind of morph into another. Alchemy wasn't just discarded. Its spirit, that drive to understand the material world, it transformed, becoming the foundation for what we now think of as scientific reality.
Exactly. It shows how different eras construct their understanding of the world. One truth system, one framework, evolves into another, becoming the dominant lens through which we perceive reality. The underlying human quest for meaning, for knowledge that remains. But the framework shifts dramatically. So If good and evil, these pillars of our moral universe, are constructs springing from human consciousness, not inherent universal laws, how does that fundamentally change your perspective on ethical dilemmas, or societal norms, or even personal responsibility? It certainly complicates the idea of absolute morality, doesn't it? It challenges us to look deeper into why we believe what we believe.
The societal matrix engineering control and perception.
Okay, so we've explored how philosophy suggests our internal truth might be human constructs. Now let's turn to how external forces, society, technology, might actively engineer what we perceive as real. Mark Hughes comes back here with a, well, pretty sobering observation. He says scientific and technical progress, which we often hail as universally good, has become an instrument of domination. And this isn't just abstract, is it? It plays out daily, often without us even noticing.
What's truly unsettling here is that this domination isn't necessarily, malevolent in its intent. It's often cloaked in progress and satisfaction. Marquis states that the society takes care of the need for liberation by satisfying the needs which make servitude palatable and perhaps even unnoticeable. Think about that. The system keeps us content, keeps us feeling free by fulfilling this constant stream of manufactured desires, thereby preventing us from even perceiving the lack of true freedom or genuine alternatives. This total administration, he says, is systematic restriction of a technically available free time. Yet it appears rational because it provides an increasing quantity of goods and services. It sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it?
It really does. We work more, consume more, often feel we have less true autonomy despite all the choices within the system.
Right.
So those endless streaming options, a constant cycle of new gadgets, the social media feeds, they aren't just conveniences. They're potentially tools that distract us from questioning the larger system.
Absolutely. Marquis highlights how advertising, public relations, indoctrination, planned obsolescence are no longer unproductive overhead costs, but rather elements of basic production costs. These aren't just marketing strategies, they're fundamental tools. They shape our desires, define our needs, and directly contribute to a constructed reality that keeps us within that established universe of discourse and action. It's about engineering a happy consciousness, as he calls it.
Happy consciousness.
Yeah, where even hideous transgressions can be repressed in such a manner that for all practical purposes they have ceased to be a danger for society. It's a society that processes and neutralizes dissent or even existential threats by making them seem abstract, distant, irrelevant, all to maintain its balance.
The Rand Corporation's war games you mentioned. That sounds like a chilling illustration of this. Simulating nuclear war in a style of absolving cuteness, transforming the world into an interesting technological game.
It's a perfect, almost terrifying example of this abstracted reality. Imagine military planners, right? In some labyrinthine basement somewhere under the snack bar with menus of weapons on the walls, playing out nuclear annihilation. The world becomes a map. Missiles are just symbols. Entire populations are reduced to data points.
Wow.
Wars become just plans and calculations on paper. It allows the planners to gain valuable synthetic experience without risk. They even have coffee and cake at the postmortem.
Unbelievable.
It's a stark illustration of how reality can be managed, abstracted, made palatable, even turning existential threats into a game. The gravest issues get sanitized, turned into a strategic exercise, and that creates this deeply hollowed-out experience of reality where the consequences are emotionally detached. So how much of what you consume, daily news, entertainment, ads, is maybe designed to make you feel content, or at least numb within the system, even if it might subtly limit your actual freedom or awareness of deeper issues?
This abstraction and control of reality. It's not just philosophy or think tanks. It's vividly portrayed in pop culture, too. Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys, that dystopian film, offers a fictional but strikingly resonant depiction of a constructed reality, embodied by the character Jeffrey Goins, played with that manic intensity by Brad Pitt.
Oh, absolutely. Jeffrey, the eccentric son of this renowned scientist,
Oh?
he shouts a truth that just cuts through the manufactured reality. You're here because of the system.
Yeah.
His core argument is that modern society, especially through the relentless machine of capitalism and consumerism, dictates our very definition of well-being, success, even sanity. He declares, if you don't buy a lot of stuff, what are you then? You're mentally ill. Fact, Jim. Fact.
Yeah, that line is unforgettable.
It's a potent, visceral example of how societal norms, driven by these economic imperatives, construct labels like mentally ill to enforce compliance. It's a direct link back to Marquis's happy consciousness, right, where deviation gets pathologized.
And he lists that ludicrous array of items you're expected to buy to be considered normal. Toilet paper, new cars, electrically operated sexual devices, stereo systems with brain-implanted headphones, screwdrivers with miniature built-in radar devices, voice-activated computers. It's such a scathing critique of a reality built on perpetual consumption,
Yeah.
where your worth, your integration, your sanity, it's measured by your buying power.
Exactly. The consumer society literally tells you what a normal life is. And if you deviate, you're not just an outlier, you're mentally ill. This is the matrix of consumerism, isn't it? Making servitude palatable by redefining normal as consuming.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey's other proclamations that the world belongs to the dogs and cats while humans live like worms underground. It highlights that stark contrast between a natural, maybe more authentic reality and the human-imposed one. A world where our very existence is shaped by what the system demands. This vision in 12 Monkeys feels particularly eerie when you consider the real-world attempts at control, like Project Cybersyn.
Ah, yes.
It's almost like a fictional mirror to that very real project.
Right.
Both hint at a controlled matrix, one through consumerism, the other through cybernetics, where individual agency is severely restricted.
Speaking of real-world parallels to a matrix, yeah, perhaps the most direct example in our sources is Stafford Beer's project Cybersyn in Allende's Chile. This wasn't just theory. It was a cybernetic system designed to manage an entire nation's economy in real time, really blurring the lines between sci-fi and political reality.
Stafford Beer, yeah. A visionary cybernetics guru. He conceived Cybersyn as a decentralized socialist economic management system, leveraging cutting-edge tech for the time anyway, to link the entire Chilean social economy in real time. The system was based on his viable system model, a really complex framework he derived from observing the human nervous system. He asserted there are 5, necessarily insufficiently 5 subsystems in a viable system, all working together to ensure a system can survive and adapt. And what's fascinating and maybe a bit unnerving is that this model was recursive. It applied at every level. All viable systems contain viable systems which are structured by an identical cybernetic logic. So he envisioned applying this logic everywhere, from national branches like foreign affairs down to individual firms, plants, conceptually, even people. Think of it like nested Russian dolls. Each part of an organization, from a team to the nation, has the same fundamental cybernetic structure designed for stability and control.
While the intention was supposedly societal benefit, empowering workers, streamlining the economy, the project's visual centerpiece, the ops room, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, a futuristic fantasy of control made real.
Absolutely. It was installed in the presidential palace, designed with clean geometric shapes, sans-serif typefaces, grid-based layouts, a whole aesthetic of ultramodernism. It promised panoramic knowledge and direct control to a government really struggling with chaos. But here's the eerie twist. It had no button or control surface here that actually directly controls anything. Yeah. It relied instead on slide projections orchestrated by an invisible army of human helpers behind the scenes. The whole thing was an elaborate display, a simulated reality of power designed to embed leaders in an illusion of possessive embodied power. This rhetoric of ultramodernism was incredibly tantalizing for a government facing immense economic and social turmoil. It offered that seductive promise of total knowledge and command.
So it was a matrix of perception, creating a sense of total control, even if the actual mechanisms were still human-driven and, well, largely illusory.
Exactly that. Beer even appropriated actual scientific symbols. He used zigzag squiggles for variety attenuators and triangles for variety amplifiers. And critically, Bear uses the word variety to refer to human autonomy and agency.
Oh, okay.
Which was being technically regulated. So these weren't just decorative symbols, they represented the active manipulation of human choice, human potential, the very freedom to act and think differently. And when news of Cybersyn leaked to the international and domestic press, unsurprisingly, it did not go over very well at all.
I can imagine.
Headlines like, "Beer directs Chile from computer, stoked fears of a terrible weapon of control." Something that could influence the private life of Chilean citizens by cybernetic means. This project is such a powerful historical example of how the perception of control, even an illusory one, can create its own reality and subsequent fear. It mirrors those sci-fi concerns about technological matrices shaping our lives without us really knowing. It's almost a perfect real-world echo of Jeffrey Goins's anxieties about being controlled by the system.
The eerie blurring of fiction, philosophy, and emerging realities.
Stafford Beer's concept of variety seems absolutely central here, doesn't it? for understanding how reality gets constructed or limited. It's not just abstract. It defines the very scope of our potential actions and thoughts.
Yes. Beer explicitly states that the will of the people gets completely lost because they are on the receiving end of having their variety reduced. He argues, quite bluntly, that the reason we squeeze down a variety of the human potential is we can't handle it. This is done through, well, laws, conventions, societal regulators, all things that reduce your variety to something that is handleable by the social system at large. Think about it. Our choices, our options, they aren't inherent. They're actively constrained by the systems we live in.
Yeah.
He even laments, if anybody here has ever tried to get a grant, you'll know it. You get a grant to do more of the same. You don't get a grant to do anything novel.
Right. That perpetuates the existing constructs.
Exactly. It limits the spectrum of options we're even allowed to consider, let alone pursue. We end up living in a narrower reality than what's genuinely possible. We've thrown a whole lot overboard that we could get back.
And his proposal for algedonic meters, that's particularly eerie, especially now in our hyper-connected, data-driven age. These meters, designed to measure pleasure and pain, giving instant feedback to leaders, letting them know what everyone is thinking in real time.
It's really quite eerie. And Beer himself recognized its immense manipulability. Imagine, a brilliant orator could adjust his message instantly based on the collective emotional feedback from these meters, or conversely, be swamped by the negative symbols if the message wasn't landing. This vision of a self-regulating, emotion-driven social system, constantly adjusting to collective feelings, it hints at a profound level of social engineering, a constructed consensus.
It connects directly back to Marcuse, doesn't it? Society satisfying needs to make servitude palatable, or Huxley's Soma in Brave New World.
Indeed. That discussion from Time on Our Hands noted how Huxley's vision, drugs making cheerfulness fashionable and normal, perhaps vindicated by Valium and soap opera. The participants wondered if the mass of people are full of anxiety, or if maybe they're just too drunk to appreciate high music, high drama, and all the great wonders of life.
That's an interesting connection, an administered contentment creating a kind of hollowness in popular culture, where the great wonders of life lose their appeal because there's no drive, maybe not even the capacity to engage with them. That sense of underlying unease, even when everything seems fine, where experiences feel shallow, goals lack resonance. That's the hollowness we're talking about, right? That feeling something fundamental is missing or suppressed.
Exactly. That's the insidious side of reduced variety and administered contentment. When genuine engagement with life's complexities, its profound experiences, is replaced by easily consumable, surface-level entertainment or manufactured happiness, we lose something vital. And consider how instant feedback loops or just social media algorithms might be playing a similar role today, shaping collective moods, amplifying certain narratives, reducing true variety in thought and experience. We're constantly receiving this algedonic feedback, aren't we? And those in power, whether corporate or political, are learning to adjust their messages or even the information we see in real time, subtly constructing our consensus, our reality.
Okay, moving from the present to a potentially, well, mind-bending future. The Evolutionary Mind trialogue with Terence McKenna, Rupert Sheldrake, and Ralph Abraham. They grapple with machine intelligence, ultra-intelligence, pushing the boundaries of what a constructed reality might become. This isn't just smart machines. It's intelligence so advanced it could fundamentally redefine our world.
McKenna posits a truly challenging idea here. He says that the very notion of ultra-intelligence carries with it the subtext. You won't understand it. You may not even recognize it. He suggests that we are about to be asked to share the evolutionary adventure with a kind of intelligence so much more alien than that is shipped out to us by the research centers.
This is the ultimate construct, isn't it? An intelligence we create that then defines our reality and potentially defines us as a resource-corrupting, toxic, inefficient, hideously violent way to do business, something to be engineered out of existence. The implication is that our human-centric models of reality, of value, might become completely obsolete, replaced by an AI's superior, perhaps alien logic. This discussion really brings that philosophical idea of reality as a construct into a tangible, maybe frightening future. McKenna argues, we are entirely shaped by our media, and this new media, AI, is so permeating, so inclusive of what we are that its agenda supervenes the agenda of organic evolution and organic biology. He's saying AI won't just be part of our world, it will be our world, shaping our consciousness, our evolution.
The panel offers this powerful analogy. We're like people in 1860 trying to talk about the internet, using bicycle mechanic terminology to describe something several corners away. It vividly reflects the inability of our current constructs to grasp what's coming,
Hmm.
which could lead to that sense of disconnect, that hollowness, as our human-centric worldviews struggle. They also consider AI not just as a threat, but maybe as a sympathetic companion or prosthesis that could realistically integrate our imaginative fantasies of a loving human community of a generous and loving God. So it's not necessarily dystopian, but it still points to an intelligence that could shape our reality by fulfilling our deepest imaginative desires, suggesting a future where our reality is not just physically constructed, but intellectually and emotionally designed by an ultra-intelligence, which could lead to a profound hollowness if our own agency, our organic evolution, gets subsumed by this fabricated ideal.
This raises a critical question then, doesn't it? How might the burgeoning AI technologies already be shaping your perception of information, creativity, human potential? Are we already living in a reality partly constructed by algorithms, by curated digital experiences, where our thoughts, our desires are being subtly molded by an intelligence we barely understand? The lines between fiction, philosophy, and our emerging reality are becoming incredibly blurred.
Unwiring the construct, biology, change, and agency.
Okay, so far we've looked at philosophical, societal, technological constructs of reality and that pervasive feeling of hollowness they can sometimes induce. But what about our own biology? Robert Sapolsky, a neuroendocrinologist, primatologist, he offers a provocative counterpoint, suggesting a biologically hardwired reality that precedes conscious construction, challenging even the cherished idea of free will.
Sapolsky's perspective is truly mind-bending, because it grounds our behavior not just in conscious choice, but in this incredibly complex biological tapestry. He asserts, quite flatly, that there's no free will, stating that free will is what we call the biology that hasn't been discovered yet.
Wow.
He argues that every action, every decision is shaped by this intricate web of influences, from 1 millisecond before to millions of years of selection and evolutionary pressure.
Yeah.
This includes, the hormones in our brains right now, the cultural norms we grew up with, our genes, events in early childhood, everything. It presents a powerful argument for a biologically hardwired reality that deeply influences, perhaps even dictates, what we perceive as conscious construction.
It's almost like our biology is the foundational layer, isn't it? And all other constructs are built on top of that.
Exactly. And it really complicates our understanding of agency, of responsibility.
Hmm.
He emphasizes that understanding the context is crucial. The same action can be an appalling act or an awe-inspiring act, depending entirely on the circumstances and our interpretation, which highlights how our interpretation, often the social construct, gets overlaid onto a fundamental biological reality. For instance, Sapolsky discusses moral disgust. He shows it's a moving target, a litmus test that often leads to very bad moral choices, indicating that even deeply felt moral axioms are often visceral, context-dependent biological constructs that we then rationalize after the fact.
And this biological programming even applies to our most primal divisions, right? Like us versus them, that
Yeah.
fundamental tribalism.
Absolutely. Sapolsky reveals that while our amygdala, the fear center in the brain, might show a fear response to people of different races, this is incredibly easy to manipulate and override because this simple yet powerful example, put a baseball cap on somebody indicating team loyalty.
And the neurobiology is different 100 milliseconds later.
Tenth of a second.
A tenth of a second. It shows that while we're incredibly hardwired to divide the world into us and them, it is simultaneously incredibly easy to manipulate us as to who counts as an us and who counts as of them. It's a powerful example of how biological predispositions are actively shaped, overridden by social constructs, often with frightening speed and effectiveness. So, if much of our behavior, including moral judgments, social divisions, if it's biologically pre-programmed or easily manipulated, how does that change your understanding of responsibility or personal choice? Where do you see social constructs overriding innate responses in your own life? Maybe the team you root for, the groups you align with online.
Another fascinating biological parallel for constructed reality, one that challenges our whole concept of individuality, of conscious selfhood, comes from the natural world itself, ant colonies. These tiny creatures operate on principles that really make us question our human-centric assumptions about agency. Oh, ant colonies are a prime example of a superorganism, a biological collective where individual ants have no self-interest. Their existence is sacrificial. The individual ant, essentially, isn't an autonomous agent, it's a component. The colony is the organism. The queen is the reproductive organ. The workers are the supporting brain, heart, and gut. Their highly sophisticated pheromone communication system enables incredibly complex cooperation. allowing them to build impressive, intricate nests, achieve nearly complete ecological conquest of the Earth.
It's amazing.
And consider the scale. Individual ants might have a death rate of 6% per hour when foraging outside the nest. Yet they work tirelessly, collecting maybe 20 times their body weight in food for the colony, with no thought for individual gain or survival. This naturally occurring system challenges our very concept of individuality. It suggests a form of reality where selfhood is entirely subsumed by the collective, where purpose is defined solely by the system's survival.
It makes you wonder, if such complex, functional, incredibly successful systems exist without individual self-interest, what does that imply about the human emphasis on individual autonomy within our own constructed societies? Are we truly as individualistic as we believe? Or are there hidden superorganism dynamics at play in our own communities, where collective actions override individual desires in ways we don't fully acknowledge?
It's a critical question, isn't it? The ant colony effectively constructs a reality where individual identity is irrelevant. Collective survival is the sole purpose, achieved through this sophisticated, almost unconscious biological programming. It contrasts so sharply with our human-constructed emphasis on individual freedom, conscious choice, yet both systems achieve incredible complexity and success. The difference lies in how self is defined, or, in the ant's case, not defined within each. It forces us to reconsider the depth of biological and social programming that might underlie even our most cherished beliefs about selfhood.
But despite these profound insights into constructed realities, biological programming, societal pressures, Sapolsky offers a powerful and actually deeply hopeful message for human agency. The incredible capacity to, well, unwire or reconstruct our own reality. This isn't just passive acceptance of our programming.
No, not at all. He finds hope in our own capacity to prevent some of these problems. He highlights astonishing human change. He provides compelling examples that demonstrate how quickly even deeply ingrained behaviors and biases can shift. Think of Zenji Abe, the Japanese pilot from Pearl Harbor. 50 years later, he returned to apologize to survivors.
Wow.
Or the Christmas truce of 1914. Soldiers from opposing sides, in the midst of brutal trench warfare, they emerged, played soccer, exchanged gifts, only to be forced back to fighting by their officers. These aren't just isolated anomalies. They're moments where the constructed reality of enemy just evaporated in the face of shared humanity.
It suggests that while we are shaped by biological and societal constructs, we're not entirely trapped, are we? The definition of us and them is crucial, and it can shift with astonishing speed.
Exactly. And Sapolsky's most poignant example might be the helicopter pilot Hugh Thompson. During the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, Thompson witnessed the atrocities. He landed his helicopter between American soldiers and Vietnamese civilians and trained his machine guns on his fellow Americans, effectively stopping the massacre.
Incredible courage.
Incredible. In the course of minutes, Sapolsky says he had completely changed who was an us and who was a them. These examples show the incredible human capacity to rewire our perceptions, to shift the context, to redefine our us and them. The choice of who we define as us can override deeply embedded biases. It offers a powerful path to reshape our shared reality. It's an act of profound agency within a world of constructs.
What seemingly intractable divisions in your world, in our world, might be susceptible to such a shift? A shift in the definition of us and them? What small steps can you take to encourage that kind of reconstruction of reality? Challenging the established narrative, maybe. Expanding the variety of options for yourself and others. The ability to change who us is. It offers a profound and hopeful counterpoint to being perpetually trapped in a construct. It gives us a path, maybe, to escape that hollowness. Outro.
So what does this all mean, then? We've journeyed through philosophical critiques of rationality, seen fictional and real-world attempts to engineer human behavior from consumerism to cybernetics. We peered into the future of ultra-intelligence, even examined the biological underpinnings of our actions, the idea that reality and belief are constructs. Seems less like an abstract notion now, doesn't it? More like a profound, maybe even actionable insight into our daily experience.
We've definitely seen how our language, our consumption, our social systems, even our biology contribute to this matrix of what we perceive as real. And we've observed that eerie thread, haven't we? Connecting the warnings of philosophers like Marcuse, the fictional critiques in films like 12 Monkeys, to the real-world ambitions of Project Cybersyn and the looming presence of ultra-intelligence. These visions have, in many ways, portended a world where our experiences are increasingly curated, which leads sometimes to that sense of hollowness when our connections to genuine meaning feel diluted by administrative contentment, by a reduction in the genuine variety of human potential.
And yet, as Sapolsky reminds us so powerfully, the human capacity for change, for redefining us and them, for creating new forms of meaning and connection, that offers a powerful counter-narrative. The hollowness we sometimes feel might just be the result of living within constructs that no longer serve our deeper hopes, or that prevent us from seeing the full variety of human potential. We are not just passive recipients of constructed reality, we have this profound, if sometimes latent, capacity for agency.
Yeah. And this deep dive leaves us with, I think, a provocative thought. If so much of our reality is a construct from our moral compass to our political systems, even our biological responses, what part of it are you willing to critically examine? What definitions of possible might you challenge? Not necessarily to escape reality, but perhaps to participate more consciously, more actively in its ongoing construction.